Premier Li Qiang meets with U.S. Treasury Secretary Janet Yellen, emphasizing the global significance of stable, cooperative China-U.S. relations. The U.S. jobs data for June just came out. We outlined the important figures in the report. Official data showed on Friday that China's foreign exchange reserves rose more than expected in June, reaching $3.19 trillion U.S. dollars. From CGTN headquarters in Beijing, this is Global Business. I'm Michelle Vandenberg. Chinese Premier Li Qiang has met with U.S. Treasury Secretary Janet Yellen in Beijing, emphasizing the global significance of stable, cooperative China-U.S. relations. Li highlights the importance of mutual respect, peaceful coexistence, and win-win cooperation, and has called on the U.S. to adopt a pragmatic approach to its relations with China. Yellen says the U.S. has no intentions to decouple from China and stressed the importance of communication to avoid misunderstandings. Earlier today, Yellen said that a decoupling of the U.S. and Chinese economies would be virtually impossible and would destabilize global markets. In a statement, the Chinese Finance Ministry said it hopes the U.S. will take concrete actions to create a favorable environment for the healthy development of bilateral economic and trade ties. Yellen's 4-day trip is her first to China as Treasury Chief. She is the second high-ranking U.S. official to visit China recently after Secretary of State Antony Blinken's visit in mid-June. Now, for more reactions on Treasury Secretary Janet Yellen's visit to China, let's cross over to our reporter John Terrett in New York. Hi there, John. So how is Yellen's visit being seen where you are?
Hi, Michelle. Well, I tell you, by the way, welcome to my new home at the New York Stock Exchange. I haven't spoken to you on this program from this trading floor for about 3 years now, so it's great to be back after the COVID era came to an end here. Look, I'll let you into a little secret about Janet Yellen. We call her the nation's favorite grandma from Brooklyn, okay? And that's because she is a grandma, and she is from Brooklyn, one of the boroughs in New York, but she's also a top-notch economist, of course, which is why she is the Treasury Secretary of the United States. And she's very, very respected all over the world. But she is the second highest politician to go with you guys in Beijing in the last couple of weeks. The first one, as you said in the intro, was Antony Blinken. He's more senior because he's the Secretary of State, and his visit was okay until there were rather disparaging remarks about the President of China by Joe Biden in Los Angeles, I think it was, certainly on the West Coast, a couple of days after Blinken left. So that rather soured his visit. So now we get Janet Yellen over. And I think she has a very tough job because, you know, Michelle, when you are the Treasury Secretary, it's very, very high stakes. Everything is high stakes. And so she's got to be very careful about what she actually says. On the table, as you were hinting just now, trade, tariffs, sanctions, and microchips. And I think China's decision to impose export restrictions on germanium and gallium, which are minerals and elements from the 1st of August onwards. This makes it a little bit awkward for her, I think. I think she'd rather that hadn't happened, but of course China's doing it because it wants to retaliate against what it sees as restrictions imposed on it by Joe Biden's administration. The thing is that Yellen has been critical of curbs on US companies by the authorities in Beijing, but she's also said she doesn't seek a winner-take-all fight. And I think that's very interesting, really, and it speaks to the fact that she really is looking for sort of compromise here and a chance to rebuild the relationships. No breakthrough, I think, is expected from our side. I don't think anybody at the State Department is looking for any major breakthrough, just like they weren't when Antony Blinken went over a couple of weeks ago. No deliverables, that's the diplomatic term for it. But the very fact she's there, the very fact she's talking, it can only be a good thing. And one other quick thing to point out, the US trade deficit narrowed from its 6-month high in June, and that's because imports diminished a little bit. I don't know about you, Michelle, I find it very hard to follow these trade issues, but that's another thing that will be on her mind. Michelle.
Well, like you said, right, communications is always a good start, so it's good that she's here, and we saw pictures of her eating Yunnan food in local restaurants, and everything looks great, so hopefully it's a great start to U.S.-China ties. Now, also the June jobs data in the U.S. just came out. What's the significance of this report?
Yes. Well, I think it could be quite significant. Let me try to explain. The background to this is on Thursday we had a private jobs report by the ADP company, and that showed us that a staggering 490,000 private jobs were created in the US in June, and pay was up 6.4%. Now that's great, Michelle, for the people, okay, who want jobs, and some of these jobs are not very high paying jobs, but it doesn't matter, they are jobs, okay. And it's great if you're a person seeking work for your family. However, it's very bad news that if you are the central bank trying to bring down inflation from a 40-year high, and the markets tumbled very significantly, in fact, on Thursday at the end of yesterday's trading session. So now today, we've just in the last half hour had the government jobs report, and for the first time in 15 months, economists basically overestimated how many jobs would be created. That's the 14 times they've got it wrong. This time it's on the downside. So here are the numbers. We've been looking for 230,000. We got 209,000. The unemployment rate is down to 3.6%. Average hourly earnings a little bit elevated, though. That's bad news if you're a central banker trying to bring down inflation. And the May figure, which was so hot, 339,000, has been revised down to 306,000. So those two key figures, massively lower than we were expecting and we thought, and we have seen prior to that in this point in the year so far, 2023. The futures markets were all down a little bit, although giving some back before the news came up. Now the markets are up a little bit here, the Dow by 9 points, the Nasdaq by 63 points. There's been absolute tumult in the what would you call it, the bond market here. I mean, really quite phenomenal movements, with the 10-year hovering around 4% and the 2-year around 5%. They're moving right now as well. The Federal Reserve meets on the 25th and 26th of July to decide on interest rates. This will be a key part of their thinking. The betting here, a quarter-point increase.
All right, thank you so much for that great report. John Terrett for us from the New York Stock Exchange. Great to see you back there. All right, the U.S. business community is pleased to see Secretary Yellen in China and believes her visit is representative of a positive outlook on trade. That is according to American Chamber of Commerce in China President Michael Hart. Earlier, he sat down with our reporter Zheng Chunying and shared with us why the China market remains crucial to the U.S. amid tensions between the two countries.
First of all, the United States and China have one of the largest trade relationships in the world. So it's obviously important, and it's important for it to be stable. One of the things AmCham China has been saying, it is important for US and China to have people-to-people exchanges at government level, at a business level, and a student level. So we're very happy that she's coming. And we do think that she's a very good representative of the US government and a positive outlook on trade. We do believe China will continue to be an important place for US companies to invest. So there are plenty of areas where China is a leading sector. So for example, electronic vehicles. China's consumer market is very attractive. Aviation sector is very attractive. So a number of our member companies are very interested to continue to engage with China to see what China can do from a consumer point of view. But also China will continue to be important in terms of manufacturing and supply chain. So a whole host of our companies are very interested in continuing to do business here. The business community is pleased to see Secretary Yellen here. We're pleased to see the US and Chinese government officials talking. So I do think that that in itself is positive. In terms of what she's hoping to achieve, we'll have to see how she frames that. I know she's got plenty on her agenda.
Leaders of multinational companies from the United States have been visiting China this year, expressing their opposition to economic decoupling between the two sides. Apple CEO Tim Cook visited in March to discuss the company's plans and supply chains with the Chinese government. This year marks Apple's 30th year in the Chinese market. Since May, the CEOs of JP Morgan Chase, Starbucks, and Tesla have met with top Chinese officials to discuss China's huge market potential in their respective sectors. Now, for more discussions on Sino-US economic ties and Treasury Secretary Janet Yellen's visit to China, we're joined by John Gong, Vice President of Research and Strategy at the University of International Business and Economics in Israel. Great to have you on the show again, John. So Treasury Secretary Janet Yellen met with Chinese Premier Li Qiang earlier today. What was your take on their meeting, and what changes do you think it will make to China-US strategy?
Well, obviously, read very carefully the press releases from both sides. But unfortunately, the American side, the Treasury Department hasn't issued a press release yet. But from the statement from the Chinese side, I think what's one thing that I pay a very close attention to is the reference to the consensus reached at the Bali Island by the two leaders, President Xi and President Biden, a few months back. This is what's called the Bali Consensus. Now, this consensus was mentioned twice in Chinese press release. Obviously, Premier Li mentioned that. He said that both sides should follow up and implement what has been reached upon by the two leaders at the Bali Consensus. And interestingly, the statement, the press release also mentioned that Janet Yellen also said that, yes, the United States is willing to follow up with the consensus reached in Bali and substantiate and implement this consensus. And I think, I can't imagine the Chinese are making up things, but, obviously this is what she said. And I think this is a major step forward upon the previous stance, for example, held by Jake Sullivan. If you look at the statements by Jake Sullivan in the past, he has never agreed, he never said the consensus of Bali. He said that the two leaders' engagement in Bali. So I think, this represents a very significant development. At least I think both sides agree upon that something was indeed agreed upon a few months back, even though, and I think probably there's some disagreements over what exactly the wordings of this consensus. I mean, the consensus is really about these 4 no's and 1 no intention. I don't have the time to go through this, but this is a set of principles guiding the relationship between the United States and China. And the Chinese side has been constantly referring to that. So I think it's very confident to say at least that Janet Yellen mentioned that something was once agreed upon in Bali a few months back.
Very interesting take on this. Now, Yellen also said that the U.S. is seeking healthy competition with China. Do you think her visit will help to improve the situation of Chinese investments in the U.S.?
Well, my take on this is that, it's all definition. What do you mean by healthy, right? I mean, in market competition, healthy competition means that you do the best you can. You try to, develop your own best products, try to outcompete your competitor, but you never do things to harm your competitor. You never try to do things to persuade or coerce other sides, other parties to harm your competitor. I think on this issue, clearly the alliance that was established by the United States, it belongs to something that I was just talking about. I don't view this as healthy competition. When Washington forces or coerces or strongly requests its allies to boycott Chinese companies, I don't view this as healthy competition. And this is precisely going back to the 4 no's that I was just talking about. One of the 4 no's says that the alliance, the revitalization of America's alliance, is not targeted at China. And clearly, in the commercial world, what's happening in the semiconductor industry, what's happened with respect to that Dutch company, the semiconductor equipment company, Amcel, it doesn't fit that statement. So I think even though I very much welcome Janet Yellen's statement about healthy competition, but I think I have disagreement about the definition of healthy competition. I have a much higher bar of healthy competition compared to probably her stance.
Yeah. Now, her visit has opened a line of communication between the two countries. Many of us have agreed, it's obviously good to start talking and communicate. Where do you think relations between the two countries will go from here?
I think this is a very good step. I think at least both sides are talking, and I think it's pretty clear that lower level communication channels probably being established. There will be more working meetings between both sides at probably lower than the minister level officials. So I think that's a very good beginning. I think it's time to get the relationship back to track. I think previously I hold the view that China, the Chinese side wants to improve the relationship. I think I used to hold the view that Washington is not very much interested in that. Washington is only interested in talking about guardrails talking about preventing this relationship from further slipping down. But I think her visit today probably indicates that the United States probably also, at least the Biden administration, appears to be interested in improving the both countries' relationship. And I think that's a very encouraging sign. And we hope, that's really what's happening here.
Yeah, that definitely gives us hope for sure. Thank you so much for your insights. Always great to have you on the show. John Gong, Vice President of Research and Strategy at the University of International Business and Economics in Israel. For years, the focus of many U.S. water experts has been on the shrinking Colorado River, but another large source of water which lies underground is also getting a lot of attention. The Ogallala Aquifer, the largest aquifer in the country, is also depleting, and that's forcing some painful decisions on farmers in the region. CGTN's Hendrik Brandy reports.
With these,
Tim Poudler runs a farm in eastern Colorado. His wheat and corn crops are thriving thanks to rain clouds that have been unusually generous this year.
we're wet right now. We've had an awesome spring. Our wheat crop that I wouldn't have given you a plug nickel for at the end of April looks like $1 million.
Poudler, to put it in circus terms, works without a net. He's a dryland farmer who depends on good weather to make a living, not on irrigation.
When Mother Nature wants to be cooperative, we can look pretty smart. We're back the way it was in the 1950s.
Before irrigation became a mainstay in agriculture, Poudler once used wells to irrigate a quarter of his farmland. But when the Ogallala Aquifer his wells drew from became noticeably shallower, he took advantage of a federal program and retired his irrigated land, cutting his water use. The Ogallala is a lifeline for many people and lies underneath 8 central U.S. states. Some have compared the aquifer to a bank account. Too much water has been withdrawn over the years. Not nearly enough has been put back in. The concept is known as depletion.
It's just too darn many straws sucking out of a bowl that's non-renewable.
The amount of water use, farmers are major consumers, far exceeds the rainwater that seeps back underground.
Ultimately, the goal is try to sustain this aquifer system as long as possible, if not indefinitely.
Joel Schneekloth of Colorado State University says that's a challenge in an industry that can be resistant to conservation and doesn't always look far ahead.
It's getting a mind change within the communities and the producers. And unfortunately, there are producers that don't care about tomorrow. They want their stuff today.
Some of these guys are just saying, I understand the equation, but I just don't want to quit irrigating.
Some farmers feel they have no choice in places like Texas.
This drought here is the worst in my lifetime as far as economic loss of what we're going to have.
Experts are now looking at alternative crops like sunflowers and black-eyed peas.
Stuff that is very economical, uses less water, which puts less of a strain on the aquifer system.
The futures of rural towns that have long relied on healthier and more predictable incomes generated by irrigated farming hang in the balance. An interstate agreement requires farmers in this part of Colorado to retire 25,000 irrigated acres, or more than 10,000 hectares, by 2029.
It'll be interesting to see how the last little bit plays out. I have no prediction. I would think we can make it work.
There's no 100% cure-all for any of this.
Similar efforts will be required across all 8 states to preserve an aquifer that supplies drinking water to millions and helps provide food to many more. Hendrik Brandy, CGTN, Stratton, Colorado.
Now let's take a look at some major corporate headlines. China's financial regulator says it fined Alibaba's consumer financial services arm Ant Group 7 billion yuan, or roughly $1 billion for its prior infringement of multiple financial regulations. The financial watchdog says Ant has overhauled major compliance issues and will be brought under normalized supervision. Ant Group says it will comply to the regulator's decision and improve corporate governance. German carmaker BMW sales grew strongly in the second quarter, jumping more than 11% over the same period last year. Deliveries of fully electric vehicles more than doubled in this period. The company said it will continue to ramp up electromobility in the second half of this year. McDonald's has dropped tomatoes from its burgers and wrapped in many parts of India due to supply shortage. Prices of tomatoes have surged almost 300% in a month. You're watching Global Business, still to come. Official data showed on Friday that China's foreign exchange reserves rose more than expected in June, reaching $3.19 trillion US.
From the 1,035-kilometer railway linking China to Laos, facilitating connectivity and boosting economic growth in the landlocked Southeast Asian country, to the joint China-Saudi Arabia photovoltaic project to harness renewable energy in the oil-dependent kingdom. The Belt and Road Initiative has come a long way since it was first proposed in 2013, complementing the development strategies of partner countries and building on their existing strength.
开创合作共赢的新模式。
The Belt and Road Initiative, linking the world in the pursuit of common prosperity for humanity.
China's foreign exchange reserves and gold reserves remained steady in June. Official data showed that the country's forex reserves came in at $3.19 trillion US at the end of June, up half a percentage point from May. The Forex Exchange Administration said that China's economy recovered steadily. It is conducive to maintaining the basic stability of the foreign exchange reserves. Meanwhile, the country's gold reserves rose to 67.95 million ounces at the end of June, up from 67.27 million ounces in May. Global fintech markets attracted nearly $220 billion US of investment in 2022, and consulting firm McKinsey & Company says technologies related to payments, cryptocurrencies, banking services, and asset and wealth management handled nearly 80% of that. Our reporter Zhang Shixuan has more.
In financial trading, the top priority can often be a quick response time from your internet connection. The prices can vary each second, and of course, the prices are key to investments and returns. At the same time, the increasing number of investors these days and their increasingly diversified demands mean larger data throughputs for the trading systems. These have all called for new tech solutions, and a new Chinese data processing chip is coming online to help speed the securities trading process.
All the components come from the domestic product providers. The whole system will have a customer end, and which we can trigger the trading, and we will go broke and we can receiving this trading and the trading station. So in every end we have the DPU to facilitate the faster trading and to facilitate these trading informations go faster.
The tech developer today held its first summit on advanced computing technologies in the securities and funds industry, gathering firms in the securities sector to talk about new tech demands and applications. Participants say new technology is now indispensable in supporting securities firms' business, and it's the new technologies that are driving industry growth.
高性能递延时它直接促进了
The high-performance and low-latency technology has directly triggered the emergence of quantitative trading. The first generation of quantitative trading in China is mainly about volume price strategy, which relies on the extreme speed of the trading market system, completed through technical trades. Securities firms now attach great importance to quantitative trading, and we believe quantitative trading is leading in technology, talent as well as research and investment. It represents the current hot topic in the industry and its future.
Last month, the Securities Association of China issued a plan for securities firms' network and information security. It encourages securities firms to have 7% of their employees specializing in information technologies by 2025. Of those, information security professionals should take up 3% of the total, and in any case should account for no fewer than 2 people. 张淑璇 ICS for CGTN Shanghai.
The 2023 Automotive Logistics Global Conference was held in the city of Yantai in East China's Shandong province yesterday. Many insights on the automotive logistics sector of both China and the world were shared at the event. Our reporter Wang Tianyu has more.
It is China's huge auto market that attracted so many people to this year's Automotive Logistics Global Conference. Hundreds of government officials, entrepreneurs, and industry experts from China and all over the world gathered in the coastal city to share their insights on the auto logistics sector. They say China's auto logistics industry is experiencing rapid growth.
China's automotive logistics industry is developing very fast. And the world's largest automotive producer and consumer, the scale of our auto logistics is also the largest in the world. Our export market have also changed greatly, pivoting from developing regions to developed regions. Our top 5 export destinations now are all developed countries.
Production here in China has been increased very much, so much. So I think that with the increase of volume production, I think that cost competitiveness is a great thing that I can value in Chinese automotive logistics industry.
For the past few decades, China's auto market was dominated by established global brands. But now, with the expansion of the country's auto manufacturing industry that has enabled more domestic brands to export their vehicles, China's auto logistics sector has become more important than ever. At Shandong Port Group's Yantai Port, the industrial upgrading can be found.
4 months ago, I've been to this port. At that time, I saw a group of drivers driving these cars each by each, one by one, to the ship to send them elsewhere. But now, there's a new thing called AGV, or Automated Guided Vehicle, that can make this work much smarter.
The machine is able to pick up passenger vehicles and automatically send them to the designated points. While the model hasn't yet gotten into mass production, it will make moving vehicles around the port more organized and efficient, dramatically saving labor costs in the near future.
All this technology that they have developed, we take it as an example, and we want to take these kind of things to Mexico. As you heard today in the conference, Mexico is last year was the first exporting market for Chinese cars, mainly for new energy vehicles. So I think that seeing this, it looks the advance that China has, and also it gives a lot of advantage because all this kind of technology we want to bring it to our countries in Latin America.
Last year, China overtook Germany to become the world's second largest car exporter, with 3.2 million vehicles shipped out of the country. The figure is expected to be even larger this year. In the first 5 months alone, nearly 1.8 million vehicles were exported, representing an 81.5% year-on-year growth. Wang Tianyu, CGTN, Yantai, Shandong Province.
And that will do it for this edition of Global Business here on CGTN. I'm Michelle Vandenberg in Beijing. Thank you for watching. Bye for now.